Hello, and welcome to our THWAC Camp Roundtable on Flash Performance in the new role of the Storage Admin. I'm James Honey, your host and Senior Product Marketing Manager here at SolarWinds. And now let's meet our panelists. Stephen Foskett, Community Organizer, Foskett Services. Calvin Zito, Blogger and Storage Evangelist at Hewlett-Packard Enterprise. And last but not least, Kong Yang, SolarWinds Head Geek. Stephen, tell the audience a little bit more about yourself.
Sure. As you said, I work for myself, basically, Foskett Services, but I'm most well-known now for being the Tech Field Day guy. So I'm the founder and organizer and everything of Tech Field Day, and where we bring people who write and speak about technology together with the companies that they write and speak about, including SolarWinds. We've actually been here in this building for Tech Field Day a couple times, which is really fantastic. And if people want to learn more about that, they can just look at techfieldday.com or youtube.com/techfieldday, where we've now got literally thousands of videos of nerds talking tech.
Awesome. Calvin.
Well, unlike Stephen, I don't work for myself. I'm betrothed to Hewlett-Packard Enterprise.
You don't own HP?
No, not yet. Oh. I've been there for a long time. Yep. I do not own it, though. I've been there
it's an earn-out.
Over 33 years, and I've actually worked in the storage industry I've touched storage for all of that, but I've been specifically working in storage for about 25 years. You can find me on Twitter as Calvin Zito, very original Twitter handle, and my blog that I manage for HPE.
Awesome. Kong?
Head Geek of Virtualization and Cloud Practice here at SolarWinds. Super excited to be here with Stephen Foskett and Calvin Zito, and you, Money Honey.
Money Honey.
Hey, even though you're a virtualization guy, I'm glad you're here for storage.
Thank you. Thanks for the invite. So excited. And you can find me at Kong Yang on Twitter.
Awesome. So let's get going. Stephen, you had mentioned you handle Tech Field Day and a lot of storage field days and so forth. What do you think is going on with the whole storage technology today, or how it's just spinning or not spinning in the case of Flash? Where do you think it'll all land?
Well, I think that's been the most interesting thing about working in the industry and covering the industry. I'm sure that you guys have all seen this as well, is the waves of innovation that happen in technology, whether you're in networking or storage or servers or management, even backup. Whatever it is that you're interested in, there's always new innovation, and it comes in waves. And recently we had the Flash wave. We've had scale out object storage wave. Now I'm looking at a lot of integrated storage products, the products that are really tightly coupled with higher level applications and virtualization systems and platforms. And we're looking out in the future, and I know that Calvin's looking a lot at this too, about some really amazing high performance storage coming. So there's a lot of stuff out there on the horizon.
Awesome. Calvin, what about you?
Yeah, so a lot of the trends Stephen mentioned, absolutely, we're seeing a lot of that. I think the thing that I'm interested to see is in the near term, you kind of alluded to this with applications coming together, but I think what we're also seeing is the infrastructure is coming together. But for a long time we disaggregated everything, and now it's servers and storage are almost indistinguishable. It's the same thing, and I think a lot of what we're trying to do is help make the infrastructure invisible so people can focus on the applications and deploying stuff. And the thing that we talk about is infrastructure as code. Just a couple commands and you're spinning up a VM or you're bringing up a container, and there's just not a lot of administrative stuff you have to do in the back end to make that happen.
Okay. Kong?
Absolutely. So I love that both Stephen and Calvin hit on the things that I wanted to talk about. So in terms of what Stephen said, the waves of innovation, so the rate of change and the scale of that change is coming so fast and furious that continuous integration, continuous delivery are things that are a part of what IT is today, and storage is a core part of that piece. And I love that there is that rate of change that's coming down the pipe. And then what Calvin mentioned, some folks call that hyper-converged infrastructure, right? The confluence of all those pieces, and then you have the software overlay on that, the software-defined storage piece of that. I think those make it very, very interesting. It changes the dynamics of things because you can inflect change once and to many devices. Devices are now able to scale, so you can get one unit, it looks self-similar to the second unit that you put into place, and pretty much now you can grow out and scale out your system. So very exciting time.
And that's really a key thing. In IT infrastructure, one of the hardest things to do, I mean, you know, in the history of IT, has been scaling and changing. You know, we've had for a long time, we've had the ability to create really good environments, really good infrastructure, really high performance infrastructure. The problem was that it was sort of a house of cards, and you set it up, and this is my perfect thing, and I tweaked and tuned every little bit of it, and we better not touch it. And that now we're finally seeing IT realize that, you know, we have to be more responsive, we have to be more flexible, and that means that we have to have systems that are not just able physically to scale, like, right, oh, we can make this one really big, but to scale in production and to be flexible in production while you're actually using it.
Exactly. Optimization changes over time. So in the past, you would optimize speeds and feeds, right? Number of IOPS, latencies for a particular application, right? But what's happening with virtualization and all these other constructs is you have different workloads coming in there, changing the behavior of the underlying hardware, the underlying, you know, infrastructure itself. And I love how you go from a paradigm of, hey, I want 1 million IOPS at this latency, to now thinking about what workloads can I put on this? You know, how many workloads can I put on this, and how does that change the paradigm?
Yeah, and I think the other thing, that, you know, virtualization changed everything, right? But there's still kind of this next step beyond that in cloud, and people doing private cloud and public cloud. And it's how do you manage that kind of infrastructure that's hybrid, that it's a mix of traditional IT, of hybrid between public and private cloud. And I think that's one of the things that we're also looking really hard at, because it's not going to be one or the other. It's going to be both for a long time. And having an infrastructure that can do that can flex and move around that. And that's, you know, it's the composable infrastructure that we're talking about now. It's really being able to have an infrastructure that it can do both, and that you can deploy a bare metal server if you need to, or if you're going to do a container because DevOps is working on something, or if they're going to do virtualization and they want to run VMware, Hyper-V, KVM, whatever it is that they're running.
So the technology is really changing the use cases, right?
Right.
James?
So obviously, you know, we're talking about the shift, the technology changes that have happened and are occurring that we're in the middle of. I think the infrastructure that you talked about, we're in the middle of that shift right now. Mm. What other shifts do you see that are kind of on that horizon? Obviously, people that are using Flash, they're shifting in that infrastructure. But what else is kind of right on that cusp that you see? And I'll start with you this time, Calvin. That you see that people need to kind of start taking a look at, kind of start really trying to understand.
I'll do that in two steps. So, near term, I think what we're going to see is NVMe is going to kind of take off. I mean, mm-hmm. the speed of SSDs is giving us a lot of advantages, but when you look at Fiber Channel today, I mean, there's still latency in Fiber Channel.
So I have a question with that. So NVMe taking off, where do you see it taking off? Because if you've looked at the market, analysts have been saying it for years. When I did SSDs for a while, yep. and every time I'd see somebody come in and go, oh, NVMe is going to take off next year.
And it might be better to actually start with what is NVMe in case people aren't aware of
That's
what
a good point, too.
Good point.
Yeah.
So NVMe it's a non-volatile memory express. It's a protocol that kind of is built, it's designed to help minimize the latencies that occur today in what we do on Fiber Channel. So, you know, you were famous for Fiber Channel over Token Ring. We're talking about NVMe over Fiber Channel, and that's going to really reduce the latencies in a Fiber Channel network. Right. I think it's coming. It's actually like in committee with the T11. Yeah. So it's coming. I mean, it's maybe something that people talked about because it was still getting kind of defined and really at the early stages, but it's now in T11, and it's going to be real.
But that would be NVMe over Fiber Channel. But of course, there's other ways to do it.
There's other ways of doing it,
and those already exist.
Right.
And so I don't want people thinking that
Absolutely.
You can't do this. I mean, already you can buy PCI Express cards
put it in a host bus adapter and
are super fast and do over PCI Express. You've got InfiniBand. So there are other ways of doing roughly the same thing. But what you're saying is that we're going to get to a point where instead of using SCSI over Fiber Channel or SCSI over Ethernet, we're going to be doing NVMe over Fiber Channel or over Ethernet.
Yeah, and the point that you made was actually what I was thinking when I was talking about this. It's going to start in the server. I mean, that's where the technology is going to be first.
And that's where it is today.
And that's where it is today. And then you're going to see it start going into the fiber fiber channel network, and then you're going to see the array manufacturers start to use it as something that now the fiber channel network can talk to. So that'll take time, but I would say within 2 years you're going to start to really see it across the entire stack where there'll be arrays that are talking NVMe.
Okay. And you had a second point in there.
The other one is kind of a longer term one, and that really is. I think there's going to be a change with the whole computing model. That what we've done with compute today is compute's the center of the world,
right?
But that's really not what customers care about. It's their data, and with the cost of flash coming down.
Oh yeah, storage is the center of the world.
Well, and it's actually
a storage panel.
Yep.
Well, it's actually
you're not going to find a lot of disagreement here.
In a way, I think it's going to put a lot of storage vendors out of business because it's going to be memory based and it's going to be a memory fabric, and it's then creating that really high speed network that now you can move the compute to the data.
Right.
And I think there's going to be a big change that comes in terms of the whole compute model that we have today. That's a ways out. I mean, we're talking probably.
Are you talking phase change memory?
Not specific to phase change memory, no. But I mean, what the memory is. I mean, I think there's a lot of things going on. HP, it's Memristor that we're working on. It may not be what ends up, the standard because it's a race to get to that. What's that kind of memory going to be?
Yeah. But I think what you're saying is that number one, there's going to be a focus on data as the center of the world, not on compute as the center of the world. And number two, that we're going to have new technologies that enable that and new storage technologies. And that's actually one of the things that I've been talking about a lot. And it, really kind of opens some people's eyes because, traditionally, like if you ask a non-technical person, like, oh, you've got an iPhone, how much memory does that have? They're going to say 32 gigs or 64 gigs or whatever. We nerds know that's not memory, that's storage. But you know what? We're wrong. There's no real reason that memory and storage are different things. It's a historical accident. It's because that's how we could do it in the 60s and the 70s, and so we decided to make this differentiation between memory and storage. But as NVMe shows, which is almost memory, it's almost storage as memory. And as these new technologies show, you've got 3D XPoint, you've got, all sorts of different phase change technologies. As these new technologies show, we're figuring out ways of getting back to the point where memory and storage are pretty much the same thing.
Right.
And so if you combine the idea of data locality with the idea of memory and storage being the same thing, it means a totally different compute architecture.
Right. And the thing that's on top of that, it's also the network layer, because one of the things that HPE is working on, HPE Labs, is the stuff called photonics, where now we're talking about with 12 fiber strands of cable, we're talking about 1.2 terabits of speed. And that's what's going to enable this ability to have storage become memory. Right. And now you can move those things around very quickly and have a compute node talk to the memory.
I love how you guys laid out everything for me, because you guys have talked about storage construct, deep dive into technologies coming down the pipe.
As you can rely on us to nerd out.
No, absolutely. As a vert and cloud guy, though, it's a don't care for me. I don't care what the underlying infrastructure is, and I think that's one of the key tenets of where the IT industry in general is going, right? You're abstracting it so that services, such as storage services, can be consumed easily, right? Remove the barrier of friction to consumption. And I love how Stephen pointed out data, because yes, data is gold. Data is the oil in there. It is the main piece of that thing. And yes, the convergence of all these domains is coming into one piece. I think the software overlay, the API ecosystems that's coming down the pipe, that's where it gets interesting for somebody like me.
Yeah, and I think that's sort of, without having people throw tomatoes at me, the software-defined data center, right? To me, it's not about software. That's the wrong aspect of it. It's about the definition. It's about the APIs and the integration. And what I'm excited about is a future of infrastructure where all of the infrastructure components have a standard API that can be used by either an operating system or a virtualization platform or a cloud platform or even something higher level like an application to dynamically reconfigure them, to query them, to find out performance metrics, to tweak and tune systems. It really becomes kind of a hands-off IT.
Exactly.
And it finally is a way, that's the mechanism that we get to this sort of integrated IT that we're talking about.
Yeah, so on the point of performance metrics, right?
Yeah.
I know that James and I have had conversations.
No company knows anything about performance metrics.
Hey, it's ever-changing. It's ever-changing in there. But with all the technologies that you guys were talking about, the one thing that when I talk to customers and when I've consulted is that the paradigm has changed. Because less emphasis on like IOPS, like million IOPS used to be a big thing. I know at Dell we wanted to be the first, right? To be able to tout that so you could plaster it everywhere in there. But now it's not about million IOPS or a large number of IOPS because everybody does that. It's about, okay, I have these very fast storage subsystems. They can be hyper-converged, they can be all flash arrays. They're easy to configure in there, easy to set up so the resources come out. They're also easy to overload with workloads because they just work. I could just drop workloads. I could script VMs to launch and they get the job done. And pretty soon I run out of capacity or I find different bottlenecks. What have you guys seen?
And I think to that point about the bottlenecks is because of that million IOPS, a lot of people that we've talked to and seen are putting these high performance disk arrays in existing infrastructure. They might update their fiber channel switches or whatever, but they're putting in existing infrastructure that was set up for a disk solution. I mean,
well, that's something we're going to have to talk about too. Is sort of the limits of the revolution.
Exactly.
I don't know if you want to dive in there right now, but there's been a lot of fear about this new data center,
right.
And I think that a lot of people are worried about. What does this mean for me technically, and what does this mean for me employment-wise? If storage is an integrated component that is automatically configured, is there no such thing as a storage admin? And we can dive into that in a lot more detail. But just sort of setting that aside for now, what you point out is really valid, and that's that IT is very conservative, and storage is probably the most conservative part of IT. And in most cases, revolutionary technologies haven't taken off or have taken a long time to take effect just because storage is conservative. And so we do see weird situations like, you mentioned NVMe. The reason that people are pushing NVMe is because right now Flash is throttled behind like SSD controllers and pretending to be a disk. Right. So we've got fake disks made up of rocket fuel. But they're smothered by these old interfaces and old ways of using it, and that's not going to change for a long time. I mean, we can get excited about a lot of these things, but I think the lesson in history is that there's always going to be conventional applications that need conventional storage, and we need to be able to apply these technologies to them as well.
Right. And as excited as I am as a vendor about Flash and how Flash has taken off. I think the numbers are something like it's only 30% of the market today in terms of the total storage that's out there that's being sold. Now you go into the customer's installed base.
And in terms of installed base, it's only like 10%.
And there's customers that still, I've just talked to a customer a couple weeks ago that's using 3PAR and none of it's all Flash, and they're absolutely happy with the performance, and they're not looking to put Flash in yet. They will eventually, and when they start, as the prices of this stuff keeps coming down, it's the obvious choice.
Well, you've got price, and you've got price per capacity, and then you've also just got total industry output.
Yep.
That's another thing that I like to point out to these guys. We still use tape drives for a reason, because they're really, really good in terms of for what they do in terms of cost per gigabyte and so on. Flash is nowhere near there yet. It's getting better. It's getting better all the time. But even if Flash was on parity with disk, we couldn't replace all the disk drives because the industry just doesn't have that kind of capacity to manufacture that much Flash. Yeah. Obviously, there are companies that are trying to build that kind of capacity, but it's going to be a long time. It's just like battery-powered cars, right? We don't have enough batteries on the planet to make everybody drive a battery-powered car.
And it's not cheap. I think that's the bigger part for these companies to add that capacity is multi-billion dollars just to build a new factory, just to be able to do that let alone all the core raw materials that they're going to need for it too. So, so Kong had talked about performance, and we kind of touched on it around the infrastructure. So today, you know, what do current admins, and this will kind of start moving in the direction where we're going to talk about the future of the admin world, the people, but what can they do today to really deliver on their performance expectations that they have today and plan to move to deliver on what's going to be asked going forward? I mean, performance expectations today are way different than what they were 5 years ago.
We've all been spoiled because, I mean, you know, everybody's now gotten used to using Flash in their mobile device, and most people are using Flash in their laptop. And going back to disk is just so frustrating because you've got so much more. And it's the same in the data center. You know, I mean, once you've seen what you can do with tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of IOPS, you don't want to go back to hundreds of IOPS with disks.
But you still have all that equipment that is usable, right? All those spinning media. So what have you guys seen in the industry, and what do you have recommending wise for our community members who are updating with all flash arrays, but they still have these workable 15K spindles that are perfectly suitable, like you've mentioned, for other workloads, right?
They are going to be perfectly suitable. That's important because there's going to be a lot of applications that are still going to work for a long time in the future using a spinning drive that, you know, depending on 1500 or 15K RPM drive, you know, somewhere around 200, 250, depending on the.
Yes, sir.
So they still work. I think what people need to be thinking about is as you start to deploy all flash, is don't immediately put everything you have on all flash. Give yourself some leeway so that as you start having applications that, you know, an end user stands up and says, hey, this application is going super slow. You've got to have the capacity in your data center to be able to move stuff to all flash. Or if you're, you know, if you use an array that can support the hybrid environment, put some SSD in there to give it a little bit of a performance boost. Problem that we're going to have is, you know, what you kind of referred to before is there's still bottlenecks in that whole stack, and you've got to be careful to manage the bottleneck in the stack. And
so it sounds like that storage admin has to do some data architecting to be able to understand the behavior of the entirety of their application ecosystem. Right?
Yeah, it's not just about managing storage arrays. In fact, it's not managing storage arrays. It's you know, stepping out and starting to understand, you know, the application requirements and the needs. And you know, the old, you know, HSM pyramid is alive and well. I mean, we're going to have a situation now. We're adding more and more layers to that pyramid where we're going to have tape applications. You know, we're going to have, you know, super memory as storage, ultra fast applications at the point, but we're also going to have flash, and we're also going to have hybrid, and we're also going to have disk for a long time to come. And it's the core question for a storage admin is what goes where. It's not how do I go all flash everywhere, it's what goes where and what makes sense in different spots.
See, unfortunately, some of them are taking the easy way out. They're like, hey, my vendor will automagically move my workload for me, right? But there's that trust, there's that rigor and discipline that needs to be inflected into their environment.
Stephen, you mentioned about making sure that you know what data, what application goes on what piece of storage. I agree with you on that. That's a key point. I'd like to get Calvin's view. How do you think, as a storage admin, storage owner, you know, what do you need to do to make sure you understand that?
I think it actually depends a bit about how you are managing your IT. And I'll give you a little insight. I work in Boise, and we actually have our storage admins for HPE IT, or 2 rows over.
Oh, wow.
And I was over there asking them the other day about how do you guys manage this stuff, and how do you manage performance? And they were like, we have 0 SLAs for performance. Our SLAs are around HA. And if somebody calls with a performance problem, and I mean, if it really is something that needs to be addressed, we'll just move it over to, it'll fail the application over to the other data center, and that'll solve the problem. We'll have to go back and figure it out. Part of the reason that they do that is these guys are managing like 10 petabytes per FTE. So they don't have time to deal with the performance stuff. And it's just, and my point in saying that is it really depends on what your IT department is doing. What is the focus of what you're doing? Is it, if you're gonna have, you know, one admin managing 50 terabytes, he's gonna have a lot of time to do that minutia detail of managing things. So it really kind of depends on what you're doing in your data center in terms of how are you managing your applications and your SLAs. Do you have SLAs around performance? So that said, I think it depends. But I think the way to manage it is around SLAs. I mean, you have to be talking to the business. You have to know what are the applications that really need the performance. You know, you don't want to give a dev environment the ability to fire something up that's running on the same infrastructure that's running money-making applications and have it suddenly start shooting 100,000 IOPS out.
And nobody's ever done that before.
Oh yeah. So I think it depends. It depends on what your goals are in your data center.
Right.
But you really do. You have to understand what are the applications that are the money makers that are going to need the performance, and if you have the ability to use software or whatever tools are available to you to make sure that you're tapping down the noisy neighbors so that they're not using the bandwidth or the I/O when the money-making applications need it.
And well, that's I think the hardest thing, and I think that the missing ingredient for so many IT departments is just the numbers, the metrics. Like you're saying, most of them are pretty reactive. It's complaint-based, performance management.
Right. Right.
When somebody complains that things are slow, then
That's when you pay
speed them up. But it's like driving with no speedometer. If you have no idea whether it's fast or slow, and you're just complaint-based, you're going to get pulled over a lot because or people are going to honk at you a lot. Unfortunately, I think that what more IT departments need, and not just storage people, but the IT itself needs. Better way to measure and record and compare metrics over time, and what is it like during production? What is it like during off hours? What is it like on weekends? What are the spikes? And if you have more information, then maybe you can have a better chance of moving away from complaint-based.
There's a tool for that.
Yeah, I heard about that. There's some tools for that.
What is it?
We'll talk about that later.
It's called SAR. It's a Unix component. I heard. I killed you.
So I need to recover from that. So we've talked about one thing that it sounds like IT departments as a whole are missing is kind of that speedometer. Mm-hmm. Some have it, a lot don't, and the ones that don't are going to get pulled over by the police. Is just going to happen. What else? And I'll start with you, Kong, on this one. What else and we'll just go back to just a storage admin, storage owner. What else are they What are they missing now? And what I mean by that is not just tools, how they do things, but from where their headaches are going to come from. What are they missing that they really need to understand?
Yeah, I think what they're trying to do is, I love how you brought up the SLA, right? Because I think apropos here is like the CIO's SLA. They have to deliver to their executives, their business stakeholders in there. Well, SLA also stands for something else. So I was thinking of this acronym that CIOs have to deliver to, right? Security. Don't get breached, or try not to get breached, or have protocols when you do get breached to recover from those situations, right? Lean, so do more with less. And then agility, right? Have that agility in there. And it's with this mindset, right? That still has not changed, right? That's what all IT pros and all CIOs should strive for. That hasn't changed. What has changed is now the technology underneath, the solutions that they're trying to solve, the applications, right? The rate of change, the scale of that change has changed. So as storage admins, they have to take that to heart, know that the data is key. No longer is it my knowledge in a vendor-specific storage solution. That's not going to allow you to have a fruitful career. It's how can I manipulate this data? How can I protect this data? How can I recover against ransomware? How can I make sure that the data is the centerpiece, and then I'm the master craftsman crafting this data into a piece of art so that I can give it to a user who finds value in it.
And one of the things we haven't really talked about, it goes along with the other SLA, is quality of service. There's plenty of storage solutions out there that have quality of service built into it where you can get a little of that control. Not to be too unbalanced in the conversation, I mean, obviously performance is just one angle of what is important. I mean, that's what you kind of hit on. So I think if for a storage administrator, you can't be so wholly focused just on performance. Frankly, SSDs and flash has kind of fixed that to a degree. I mean, we talked about it before. There's still bottlenecks in the system. I don't want to say that
it's fixed it, but in the old days, it was not possible to deliver high performance, period.
Right.
And so the question for storage admins wasn't, how should I use this or how should I manage performance? It was, oh my gosh, how can I make this thing perform anyway near what people expect? Now we finally have the tools.
Right.
Like I said, it's rocket engines and rocket fuel, and you can pour that in there and you can make this thing go.
Yeah.
And so now that we've got the tools, what are we going to do with these tools?
Yeah, and in the old days, and still people do this today, I mean, you had a database that you knew what kind of performance you needed to get out of it, and you didn't go out and buy capacity for your database. You went out and bought the number of disks you needed to get the IOPS you needed for that. And that's one of the things that, that Flash is at least helping with. You're not going to go out and buy, 1,000 spindles because
and short stroke them all.
And short stroke them all, and be 10% efficient because really what you needed was some performance level. But it's interesting that Flash is almost going to take us back there to a bit, though, because now we've got, 15 terabyte SSDs down to, starting with the ones that are out there a lot now are the 40 gigabyte or 400 gigabyte. Now they're up to 15 terabytes, and now you're going to be back in that same position again where you're actually going to be looking at Flash and saying, okay, how many of these spindles do I need to optimize capacity and performance?
Well, hopefully you don't call them spindles, but...
yes, that's true. That's true.
But yeah, yes, that's true in that as capacity goes up, performance may not go up as quickly, but at least performance goes up.
Yes.
Because those 15 terabyte SSDs are actually going to have some fairly impressive performance numbers compared to a 150 gigabyte SSD, just because they've got more channels and more lanes and more chips. But you're right that the performance per capacity is actually tapering off unless you can move to NVMe or to memory channel storage or to this new stuff.
So obviously we know from a storage admin, storage owner, you have to understand your SLAs. You've got to understand your IT. You got to understand your business is really what we're kind of getting at. You have to understand who's doing what where. To me, it's like a bad Abbott and Costello episode. Who's on first a lot of times? What are you doing as a department? So with that, what can they do to get down to nitty gritty, protect their careers? Traditionally, as storage admin before, it was protect the data, I'm going to give you some performance, good luck, based off my budget, and I'm going to create LUNs and assign these LUNs out and manage my LUNs and maybe do some replication, snapshots. Some of that's still there, but a lot of it's changed. So what do the storage owners, storage admins need to do to kind of future-proof themselves?
Well, it's a good point that you make. I mean, the first the first 10 years of my career was based on wizardry. Like that was my special thing. Like I was the wizard who could make stuff do stuff, and either I could make SRDF work, or I could make a Clarion not stink. And so I was really good at like tuning the knobs and tweaking and tuning and being like the wizard who could make this stuff work. I think a lot of people in IT are used to wizardry, and they're used to being respected for their deep knowledge and their ability to make this special thing do its special stuff. I think that's the way that IT careers and jobs are changing. We still need wizards, and in fact there are still going to be wizard jobs out there, but I think more and more there's going to be more big picture jobs and more need for people to think about applications. When I was the wizard and I was making things perform, I remember I worked at a bank and I didn't even know which systems ran which application. I mean, I literally had no idea what this data is. All I knew was that my job was to keep it running and to make it perform as well as possible and to respond to requests. But I didn't even care what it was doing. That wasn't relevant, right? I mean, I was just making it go. And I think that that's going to be less and less of an emphasis for IT. We're going to need to start thinking about, instead of just making it go, we need to think about, what is it doing? How can I work better? And it's not just about performance. It's about, SLAs and other areas, and it's about flexibility, and it's about meeting the needs of whatever this business application is supposed to do. Most people are not in a company that does storage. Most people's company does something other than storage, and if your company does something other than storage, then you need to be clued in about what it is that your company is doing and figure out how can you better serve that need instead of just focused on how can you make the storage do storage stuff.
Right.
Play off the wizardry thing. I think the change that we're seeing in technology and IT is so rapid that wizardry is great, but I think at some point you're going to have to take off your wizard hat and put on your graduation, learning cap. Yeah. And I think what's going to be most important is that you can show a passion to learn, because and being able to learn new things. Because when you go look for a job, if you're not employed now, or if you're a storage admin and you find yourself having to find a new job, I think what any hiring manager is going to look at is like, well, that's great. You've got a great technical background, you really understand storage, but prove to me that you can learn something new and that you're a passionate learner to pick up something new. Because maybe what they might need you to do is get out of the managing traditional IT and start figuring out, how do I manage a cloud environment? And the skills, some of them are similar, but it's a new area of focus. And I think it's really more about prove that you are passionate about learning and that you can learn new things. I'm not sure I would tell anybody specifically, unless you know what direction you want your career to go off and learn Docker today. Unless you know that's what a skill you need, I wouldn't necessarily tell somebody go off and learn how to manage a Docker persistent storage environment. Just show that you're willing to learn and have a passion to learn about what's coming new, and because I don't think you're going to be able to predict what's exactly things are going to look like in 5 years.
Yeah. And you're the first one to mention the word Docker, by the way.
Uh-oh. Do I get a prize for that?
Yeah. I was waiting.
Here, no, we've got it right here. It's in a container.
What about you, Kong?
I love the points that you guys have made, in there. I think the storage admins, traditionally, they need to continue to evolve. I agree with you, continue to learn, but there's a set of skills that they can leverage, right? So we here at SolarWinds like to call it monitoring as a discipline, right? So there's 8 skills, the Dart and Source skills. We have ebooks, shameless plug for my ebooks in there. But with those skill sets, it's skills that they're already using as storage admins, and it'll allow them to bridge into these new tech constructs, because there's n number of ways to solve a particular problem, right? And they can use n number of technologies to solve that problem. So to your guys' point, it's now about what is the pain point, what problem am I solving, and it's usually application centric, and it's usually with that application, I'm gonna help the business disrupt, right? Inflect some disruption in terms of innovation.
In the market somehow,
yes,
yeah.
Exactly, in there. So you don't have to abandon ship and learn coding and things of that nature if you don't want to go down that route. But certainly APIs aren't going away. It's going to come down the front. You mentioned Dockers and containers, Kubernetes, with orchestration.
Yeah.
Yes, those
Chef, Puppet, all this stuff.
Exactly. Automation and orchestration are here as the high levels. You have to be able to impart some value in those pieces.
So, Kong mentioned some disciplines. Calvin, you mentioned learning. What other little tidbits? I understand you don't want to say, hey, go learn this code, because that might not be the path. But what do you see that are core disciplines that every storage owner, every storage admin you kind of need to start knowing that today? And I'll start with you, Calvin.
Well, I think the obvious one is virtualization. I mean, everybody's already there,
Yeah.
right? But if you've been focused on storage as a storage admin, just virtualization itself, this goes back to where we maybe started the conversation, with things converging back together. Learn a little bit more about the servers. Know about the switching, and if you're using throw a name out there. If you're using Brocade, Brocade's got some great tools that they're starting to come down, give you lots of great insight into the network. Virtual instruments. There's a lot of tools out there that you could start to learn to widen the berth of what you understand. And I think if you're focused on managing, sitting in front of an array and being a storage admin, it's expanding your knowledge into the rest of the infrastructure, because that's coming. There's no doubt you're going to be asked to do more if you're not already. I mean, a lot of SMBs, they already do that, right?
Yeah.
They wear a generalist cap. But if you're only doing storage administration today, become more like an SMB and learn more about the environment.
Yeah. So we're almost out of time, and I want to each give you guys a chance to just kind of, what do you want our audience to really know and understand? I think we've hit a lot of great points around flash performance. Where's the world going to be, and where does that mean for me? So just take a little bit of time and start with you, Stephen.
Sure. I think that bringing it back to storage, because I'm a storage guy. Number one, I'll say some horrible things. Number one, storage isn't as difficult as people think it is, or as obscure as people think it is. I'll plug a little SolarWinds ebook on storage that I wrote. So I wrote an overview of storage ebook for SolarWinds, and in 20, 30 pages, basically it's the basics of storage. It's not that hard. Number two, storage is not that important. Again, I'm a wizard. I love storage. I love, my disks and stuff, and I'm, building a home this and, messing with that. But frankly, most people shouldn't care. Like Kong said, on the high level, they shouldn't care. They shouldn't need to care, and they shouldn't really want to care about the nuts and bolts. And some people, we still need storage wizards.
Right.
There's still going to be storage wizards out there. Calvin, man, that's your career, man, storage wizard, and mine too. And that's great, but you don't have to be a storage wizard anymore. The cool thing is that storage is now becoming a lot more integrated and a lot easier. There's a lot more standard interfaces and APIs and integration points, to the point that if you really just find that you don't want to know much about it, you can get along without it, and you can be the data guy or the application guy. And then number three is, although IT is conservative and we're not going to lose everything and change everything and have, a total, earthquake of everything's different, there are changes coming. And one of the big changes is that a lot of infrastructure is going to disappear. And we're going to start getting into more integrated platforms, application platforms, and even integrated applications, special purpose infrastructure for applications. And so, there again, be aware that in your data center, you're going to have a cloud, you're going to have a software-defined platform for applications, whatever you want to call it. And it doesn't need wizards. And it doesn't want anybody to mess with it, and in many cases, you can't even touch it.
Yep.
So just be aware that storage is changing, and new things are coming, and that storage and servers and networks will become invisible. Yep. So I think everybody, all of IT people should be aware of those things, and should have a general amount of knowledge about networking, about servers, about virtualization, about containers, about storage, and not focusing, like Calvin was saying, no, don't focus too much on this product or that product, but understand what these things are, so that when the time comes, you'll be able to integrate that knowledge and learn, what you need to learn in order to move forward.
Awesome.
I don't know how to follow that up. It's got to be a Foskett mic drop and walk off.
That was really wonderful, I've got to say.
It was really good.
So why did you get to go first on that? I don't know. It's tough to add to that. I mean, I think the only thing that I might say is you're going to have to pay attention to what's happening, because public cloud is on the horizon. Private clouds are already in data centers. Storage is changing rapidly. SSDs coming. We've talked about NVMe. So I mean, I think the thing to pay attention to for your career is pay attention to what's happening and what's changing and at what rate. I don't think we're going to see too many people without infrastructure in their data center anytime soon. But how fast does that change? Yeah. I mean, I don't know that anybody can predict. There's all kinds of numbers out there predicting, and they keep changing those predictions because they don't know. So you to protect your career and your future, start paying attention to the changes. Don't be so focused on, just managing the infrastructure that your current job, but pay attention to what's going on in the industry. Read the bloggers. Read the watch the Tech Field Day and hear what's coming. And
definitely watch Tech Field Day.
come to HPE Discover and
there you go.
and read my blog and just stay informed as to what's happening, so that you can really navigate this massive change that's happening so quickly.
Well, and I think you guys hit a good point, and Con, get to you real quick, is pay attention to a lot of different avenues. Don't just listen to one. Pay attention to a lot of different ones and get good advice.
And be skeptical.
Yeah, always be skeptical.
Always be skeptical.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think it boils down to two things for storage admins if they want to continue their career in IT, right? Trust and competence, right? You have to be able to instill trust that your organization trusts you and be competent enough to learn anything and everything, right? And one of those core tenets is finding the right sources to continue to expand your level of competence, right? So as was mentioned here, Tech Field Day is a great resource, folks. Highly recommend, if you're not aware of what Stephen and the goodness that Stephen brings to the community with Tech Field Day, you must go there. You, my friend, with your blogging and your off-the-cuff video casts is, you drop nuggets of gold for HP. HP, I hope you're lucky enough to know how lucky you are to have this gent here. And from a SolarWinds perspective, we have thwack.com,
Absolutely.
we have lab@solarwinds.com.
Yep.
Those are resources, the head geeks, our PMM team members, we write about the industry trends and where it's going. And I think, being connected, because everything's connected now. Having that context, what I like to call connected context to the industry, that's what's going to enable storage admins.
Community.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Well, Stephen, Calvin, Kong, I want to thank you guys very, very much for joining us today and making me feel smarter just sitting in the room with you guys. And I want to thank everybody there at Thwack and watching us today, and thank you again for joining us.